on this Youth Day and Education Day. So we're not only talking about the education and youth intersection, but also girls, gender, which is super, super important. So I appreciate everyone being here. We have an exciting event. It's 90 minutes long, so I hope you stay for it all because we're definitely going to have a lot of different discussions. We're going to start with framing the context of what is gender transformative education, what are the barriers, and then move on to solutions, call to action, really aspiration, right? I think we've been, I don't know how many of you have been at COP the whole time, but it can definitely get exhausting, and so it's nice to not only talk about the problems, the challenges, what's not working well, the gaps, but about the actual solutions. So let me just introduce myself very quickly. My name is Renata Coke Alvarenga. I'm the founder and executive director of EmpoderaClima, which is a gender and climate justice organization that's based in Brazil, that's led by youth, and we work all over Latin America and the Caribbean, focused on also girls' education for climate, but mainly on empowering women and girls, empowering youth really to act on the climate agenda with that gender lens, with that youth lens, because really we need to have an intersectional approach to climate in general, but also to climate education if we want to solve the climate crisis with inclusion, diversity, and equality at the forefront. So thank you again for being here. To get started, we'll have our first panel, and let me just thank all the partners. This event is actually one of many that we've done over the past few years. We did one at COP26, one at COP27, really to bring this agenda to the UNFCCC level, to the high-level space that we're in. And so some of our partners include Plan International, EmpoderaClima, the organization I'm representing, Green Hope Foundation, Plan for the Planet, the UNFPA, the Global Partnership for Education, GPE, and the UN Girls Education Initiative, UNGUIDE. So thank you for all the partners that are working tirelessly on girls' education for climate. So this first panel, as I said, it's going to focus on the current discussions, the challenges, the examples around gender transformative education. So let me invite to the stage the speakers for the first panel. We have April Rusdini, who's a global youth, from the Global Youth Panel of Youth for EIE of Plan International Indonesia. So yeah, feel free to come up, sit anywhere. Great. We also have Dr. Angela Baschieri from UNFPA. Please come to the stage. Thank you. We also have Annabelle from the Plan for the Planet. Would you like to come up on this one? Thank you. And I believe we're waiting for the Minister of South Sudan, who's coming of General Education from South Sudan, honorary Q, but I think they're running late a little bit. So hopefully they can join us soon, but we'll get started just in the interest of time. And thank you again for being here. Thank you for the panelists for making the time. We really wanted to have a very diverse kind of perspectives of people who are in the UN space, in the civil society space, in the youth space, to really hear from all the perspectives. Because as we know, a lot of times at COP, we really don't get to hear from people who are on the ground or are doing this work from different lenses, right? It's always the people just in government or decision makers, and so it's really valuable and important that you're all here. Thank you so much. So to get started, I have a question for all three of you, because I really want to hear your perspectives on all of this from your environment, from your backgrounds, which is, can you tell us an example from your context, from your work on gender transformative education action that you're doing, and how it has an impact on climate justice? So what are some examples on the education side? What are some of the challenges? What have you seen basically in your environments, in your regions, that guide you to this work, that bring you to COP? So maybe we can start with you, Dr. Angela.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me here. I'm really happy to share the work that we are doing and speak on behalf of the work that UNFPA is doing on gender and on climate. We actually, maybe I can step back and talk about a little bit about what we have launched a new gender strategy called Agency, Choice and Access. And the strategy is meant to kind of position the way we approach gender equality and gender transformative action in the context of the mega trend. And climate is one of them. And one of the important aspects of the strategy is that we need to work on gender transformative action. And so trying to remove the social norm and trying to understand, unpack the space in that sense. In that context, in the work on climate, we have identified this as a gap, and we've done a review of nationally determined contribution over the last year, and we analyzed 119 documents, and we wanted to see aspects of sexual reproductive health and rights, of gender and health, We also look at aspects of youth engagement and human rights. And we found out a number of things. We found out that about a third of the NDC acknowledge that climate change has an impact on sexual reproductive health and rights. Despite the majority of the NDC acknowledge that climate has a disproportionate impact on gender, very few of them articulate specific responses in terms of implementation side. And in that context, we have been working quite a lot at the national level with the key actors to trying to strengthen the development of a NDC and National Climate Plan and ensure that gender-transformative action and gender-responsive action are included in the National Climate Plan. And we have identified that there is a gap in capacity of stakeholders at all levels to see the linkages. And so we actually starting to run a number of training at national level with key stakeholders. We actually did one in South Sudan a few weeks ago, where we invited all key stakeholders working on the National Climate Plan. And we did a training of 3 days where we talked about the gender transformative action, how climate disproportionately impact women, what are its impact on sexual reproductive health and rights, what are the possible responses in terms of strengthening system, strengthening the community response, how we have better data. So we are kind of trying to fill in that gap. And so we hope to kind of expand that piece of work. We actually got some funding from the Africa Development Bank and the Africa Climate Change Fund, which is a call of a project, a series of projects looking at focusing on the gender transformative action that can be happening on a national level. So I feel like this talk is in any way presented the project because it's exactly trying to address the focus of this talk.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Angela. And I love that you mentioned funding too, because if you look at the data, it's only about, I believe, 3% of climate philanthropic funding that goes to women-led or feminist-based organizations doing climate work, and 0.76% that goes to youth organizations doing climate work. So really, we're very behind when it comes to supporting this work. So it's nice to see that there's some good work happening around that already. Great, thank you. So now I'll pass on to April to talk about your experience on gender transformative education. What are the gaps? What are the challenges that you see?
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me. My name is April, 20-year-old, and youth activist from a small city near Jakarta called Bogor in Indonesia. Bogor is impacted by climate change. We have heavy rains every day. Also storms and pollutions, and this impacts children and especially girls. For example, they can go to school because the school buildings is floodings every time, and during the flooding, a lack of clean water and sanitation makes it difficult for girls to manage menstruation hygiene. These two can stop them going to school. And this inspired me to take action as a youth. I believe that I have the power to be a change maker. So I become a youth mentor to educate other girls to address the impacts of climate change. I joined Plan International's Youth for Education in Emergency. We led many climate education activities. We ran a campaign on education in the climate crisis, using social media to share our messages across Indonesia. And this inspired many more girls to join the movement for climate justice. This campaign was possible because we, as girls, had access to a small grant. And I call on governments, NGOs, to resource, fund, and support girls' leadership in the climate crisis to drive forward gender transformative education as the solutions on climate education. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, April. Thank you for mentioning so many key points. I love that you mentioned also menstruation and hygiene, because that conversation is definitely missing from COP when we talk about sexual and reproductive health and rights in relation to climate, and it's such a big component, right, of the climate crisis and of the lack of gender equality in this space. Thank you. And now I would like to pass on to Annabelle to talk about the work on Plan for the Planet as relates to gender transformative education.
Thank you, first of all, for the invitation. I'm happy to speaking to you today. Maybe a few words about me. With a migration background, living in Germany and raised up in Germany, I started very early to support other girls and women, also with migration background, facing similar situations than me, in sticking in their roles or educations, in their cultural roles, in their families with an old traditional role pattern, which is often not the role which we want to see girls and women in, and a self-responsive role and a leading role, but more in supportive roles inside the family, standing behind the man. So I am a mentor for different organizations, and I've built different initiatives, but I want to focus today on 3 because I think it gives a nice journey. I founded some years ago the Get Your Wings, which is focused more on Germany. We are focusing on social burning areas, and we combine digital learning with sustainability learning, and we have special workshops for girls because we saw that girls often are shy, don't want to ask if boys are in the room. So we wanted to give them more free space, safe space, that they're not shy to ask questions. We support them in learning coding by working collaborative, and we have an online learning game which calls Code and Save the Planet, where they learn sustainable living by working together and learn the first easy starts of coding, which is not really big coding experience, but gives them the idea how nice and interesting IT can be, and that they have the feeling, yes, I can. This is the most important message, and I'm not alone. And there are areas of importance for me to drive in, to get in, to face and take over responsibility to change it for the better. In addition, I'm in a board role at Molly Stream. Molly Stream is an initiative founded by a German who moved to Sub-Saharan Africa. And in Sub-Saharan Africa, we are focusing on kids without children, or where the parents put them out because they had handicaps. And first of all, we have to make sure that they have enough food. Then it's about that they have a bed to sleep in, or a roof on the top. But then the third is to train them. So we're working close with universities from local, but also from abroad, bringing from Germany and Europe students in to train the people there. We have special workshops for girls where we train them by having role models and female students, that they should give them an idea what is possible. And we see that this idea of storytelling is very important, that it gives them an idea of, yes, she did, so I can do it too. And even if the stories in Vita is so different, the biographies are so diverse, it's good to give them an idea that there are chances outside, and opens them the fear that they have the feeling that they can think outside the box and get other ideas than they had at home. And third, making the picture a bit bigger, is then Plan for the Planet, with a worldwide activity and engagement of the youth, where girls and boys are working very close together. And with the academy we train them not only to have the knowledge about trees and environment protection, but we train them also, what is even as important, to be really not shy, to stand up and raise the voice. And it's so great to see young women, girls, which are interviewed by television, by radio, which stand up and talk about this topic, are proud of their work and show how it works. And this is sometimes very easy things, but it's the most important things. And it's great because it gives the girls a lot of self-empowerment. It gives them the feeling that they have a role, that they are important, and it's not that they are somebody, it's that they are somebody very important. And this is great because it increases also this, gives an idea of storytelling movement, because they talk to each other and build groups, learn from the experience of the others. and find also differences of cultures and how to overcome challenges, help each other by peer-to-peer work, and train each other also. And it's such a great atmosphere when you are with them, because they're so full of their responsibility, and this is also often overcoming their shyness. Because they know that they have a task, they know that they have a duty, they know that they have a responsibility to change the world for the better. And tree is such a nice example because it's easy to show. No? You take a seed, you get a plant, and you get a tree in the end. That is a nice sample of what you can do, not just with a tree. So we're happy to see this, but on the other hand, we don't close our eyes against what are still the challenges, and the challenges are not small. We still have this culture biases, we still have this education, lack of education, and even if I look in an industry country like Germany, I see that education, that a lot of lack of this gender transformation education. It's still that we need there more project work, more media work on that, more also transparency and supportive work on training and giving strength and idea to girls.
Thank you, Annabelle. I love the points you made about empowerment through storytelling, through capacity building, right? We need that because the reality is there are really powerful young people already, doing this work, but a lot of times you just need that extra step or the support or even, the capability, the space to let them shine the way that they're meant to be, right? The potential they have. I love that, and I love also the common themes that came along. I think when we're talking about the gender-transformative education work, it's such a big concept because we're talking about challenging our current systems, right, of oppression and inequality. So if we even want to begin to go to the next level, we have to change completely the current way we do things, right, the business as usual when it comes to climate education or climate action. So on that note, I have a quick question for all of you before we go to the Q&A. So please, if you have any questions that you're thinking of, either for specific speakers or the whole panel, we'll have that time in just a bit. But I wanted to take this opportunity for you all to define what are the partnerships, the resources that you think are missing or that you need for your work from your perspective specifically, because I think we have such a unique space here where there's so many different stakeholders from many different areas that I think only COP brings together. At least in the youth space, we're all a lot of times siloed, not because we want to, right? But we're talking youth to youth, and sometimes we don't have the opportunity to interact with people who are in other spaces that could be really useful for our work. And so what are the partnerships, the resources that could enhance this work that you're doing? Maybe I'll start with you, Angela.
Thank you. I think in the work that we do with UNFPA, it's clear that our role is really to facilitate this cross-sectoral collaboration and discussion, and also not is a intergenerational discussion that needs to be facilitated across sector as well. In the context of the work that we are rolling out on training stakeholders, it's clear that there is a need to have that space where there is each sector understand the linkages and how climate impact women disproportionately, young people from different areas of the country. And for us, it's really kind of showing us kind of a roadmap of work that we need to do, because it's through that kind of understanding of the linkages at national level that then national actor can develop better policy. And in that context, we are trying to support and facilitate youth engagement, women's engagement in the process of the NDC, as well as in the elaboration of solution. And so it's a kind of it's a steady process, and more and more kind of we're trying to roll it out the same approach in different countries.
Thank you. April?
Okay, thank you. As I mentioned it before, we need governments or NGOs to resource fund and support on the girls' leadership in the climate crisis, and we need transparency from the government about how to access the grant. Even if a small grant, it's important to youth and girls especially to access it, because I think that's the key to get to get our goals done. Thank you.
Thank you. It's not even having enough resources, right? It's how do we even access
Yeah.
and reach them. That's great. Thank you. Annabelle?
Thank you. I think it's three things which are super important. We have to involve everybody, we have to invite everybody, and we have to integrate everybody. And these three things are super complicated in the end, because there are so many great organization initiatives worldwide, and often we don't know them or just a small piece of them. So I think it's important to bring them better together. Networking platforms like here are perfect, I think. And it would be, of course, great to understand that we need more collaborative working, and that it would be, of course, super if there is somebody who is having and leading one big project, and we can all work together on this, like a kind of Ark Noah, where everybody brings something in, and we are there all together, because sometimes there are so super things, and I work here also on COP, hearing this and that, and thinking, oh my God, I haven't heard from this. What a shame. And it is such a shame, because we can learn from all of that. And bringing this power together is much, much better than if we have single drops, which are good, but it's much better, of course, if we are together, because it's not about single people now. It's about a movement now.
Love that. Thank you so much. Well, with that, now we have some time for Q&A. I hope there's some questions and any comments that you may have about these challenges, these systemic issues, before we move on to the next part of the session. I think we have some people that can pass over the mic, right? Yeah? Great. Yeah, so if anyone wants to raise their hand, want to ask a question, we'll have a mic go over to you. Right, we have one right there. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. If you could say your name, just your organization or country you're from, that would be great.
Hi, my name is Susan Nandudu, and I'm from Uganda. I actually work with an organization that is a partner organization to Plan International. So great to hear the experiences on the floor. I just wanted first to reflect with interest on how in Indonesia you're using the digital approaches to reach out to younger people. I'm wondering whether you come from an urban context, and if being in the urban area helps you have better access to technology to be able to use that platform. And I say this because I come from, we are working from a rural perspective, and ICT is not an approach that we use, because it's just not there, and it's just not working for the communities that we are working with. But we find that the one-on-one conversations are very, very relevant, and having small spaces where girls are able to talk, and they're safe spaces. And we have utilized an approach called body mapping, where they are able to relate. We adapted the body mapping tool with questions that they are able to relate climate change to their sexual and reproductive health, and from that are able to trigger and draw relationships to between climate change and their sexual and reproductive health and rights. And the issues that you are speaking about keep emerging: menstrual health, children dropping out of school quickly because of the hazards and all. And I wanted to just ask a question relating to the divide, the big divide we see between policy and practice, that girls, especially in rural areas like those, are quite invisible to the policy spaces which you are working in, and bringing the visibility of SRHR and these issues to the COP. So what are you seeing as the major challenges that need to be overcome to help make health and climate change a stronger voice at all levels in the policy frameworks? Thank you.
Thank you. I think we'll get a couple of questions just because of time. Yeah, great. Anyone else have a question? Yeah, okay, great. Someone with the mic there. we'll get 3 questions, then we'll have it
Okay,
then.
it's on. Great. My name's Kristen Othling, and I'm with Plan International Canada. Thank you so much for this great presentation. My question is actually the flip side of the challenges. I would love to hear from you. What are the biggest opportunities that you see for advancing gender transformative climate education from where you sit with the levers of power that you have? How do you think that we can best advance this really important approach? Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe we get one more. Yeah. See a question here. Yeah. Great.
It's a very good deliberations, but I have a doubt because your title itself, Breaking Barriers, Gender Transformative Education as a Catalyst for Climate Justice. I think it has got 2 parts. The first part is breaking barriers. Okay, right? Gender transformative education. That is through digital platform, digitalization of education. That is one part. The second part, for that, what are the challenges? That part was not very clear. I think from the speaker's point of view, I mean, digital transformation, education in digital or educating the digital usage of digital transformation in education, that is correct, good, but at the same time, how this digital transformation will contribute for accepting the challenges or facing the challenges. That part is not clear. I think the speakers, it would be better to clarify that point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now, anyone that wants to start with any of these questions, please go ahead.
I could.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, the question from you was
Plan International.
Yeah, for Plan International. Can you repeat once again the question? Or do you want to?
The opportunities, right? The opportunities.
Okay.
Biggest opportunities that you're seeing for advancing gender transformative climate education?
Okay.
From your perspective, where can we really get traction?
It's great that you're asking that question because, I mean, we are talking so much about problems, we're talking so much about challenges. It's also good about talking about what could it help. And I mean, I want to give you a small story if we have a bit of time.
A little bit, yes.
All right, okay.
Because we have to get to the second one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I often work with simulating founding a company. And when I am there with, when there are girls and boys, it's interesting how diverse they are acting. So often it's that the boy says, oh, I'm a CEO, or oh, I take over the manager position. And the girls often say, oh, I will do this. I like to work on that. I get this done. And I think these differences, I mean, okay, often there are cultural patterns behind, and I don't know if that what I've seen in Europe is something which you can transfer to other countries. But I mean, this is not negative at all. But I think it's important, and if the girls who see that they want to get things done also see that they can be a CEO and can get things done. And the boys, on the other hand, see that they can be CEOs and can get things done too. So I think it's the chance is that you are mirrored, that you see that the chances are bigger than you thought. And I think in addition, the chances are that if somebody wants to get things done, a girl wants to get things done, fine, yes, but the girl should get a bigger space and has to get a bigger support. This is the chance, I think, because it's great that there are maybe girls more to want to get things done because we need that. We need exactly that more than ever. So I think this is that chance, and we can raise that and get this to the table. And we see it also at COP, we see it at other conferences. It's often the women who just want to doing the things and don't need to have the podium where they stand first and need to say, okay, but it was my idea, it's my power, right?
Thanks. I think now, if you want to comment on any of the other 2 questions, that would be great.
No. Okay.
You what?
You first.
Okay.
You first.
No, I think that it's a mindset that needs to be kind of reflect on, and I think there are opportunities, as you said. So how we turn around on this, and women are the part of the solution, right? So they in many contexts are the one that are very close to the environment, and there are nature-based solutions that are driven by women. So I think it's a really kind of a focus on the opportunity that we have to really turn the agenda around in terms of opportunity. In the context of the work we do see that we need to ensure that we facilitate that role of empowerment in the process of designing solution, of engagement in the national level discourse, and we're trying to do that at all levels. We actually, with the training that we have designed is not just for stakeholders, we have another set of type of training that we have designed for young people on comprehensive sexuality education and climate. We piloted that in 8 countries and was very successful in that sense that they were empowering adolescents on those linkages, and eventually they will be part of the table. So it's like working on a different level, but giving them opportunity to drive the change through the design of process, to the engagement. And so there is an opportunity in that sense.
Thank you. April, do you want to add
Okay,
anything?
no, I will just answer the very first question about how to educate the girls or transformative education in the rural area, right? Yeah. So based on my experience, we go to the field. So we go to the area and we just socializing it to the community directly. So when we come to the rural area, we don't using such as social media or digital things. We just directly like educate them. So everyone can access and everyone can can learn and can share everything in person. That's our way to educate the girls and youth in the rural area. Thank you.
Thank you, April. And thank you all. We're not done with the event. We have a second part, more focused on the solutions. So I know it seems a little negative, right? But we have to talk about the challenges, the barriers, breaking the barriers, right? That's the goal of this event. And so before we move on to the second part of the event, we have the wonderful Fatou Dieng, who's the climate advisor for the UN Secretary General and gender negotiator for the Gambia. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Renata. I was actually supposed to do the official opening, but you know it's come and we get lost around. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining us in this session today. And we've heard from the first panel, we've heard about the challenges that women and girls continue to face. We've heard about some of the problems that we face in the UNFCCC process, and most especially at the local level, where it matters the most, where women and girls continue to be disproportionately impacted. And for me, this event is very crucial because we are trying to break the barriers that women and girls face and make sure we advance gender-transformative climate education as a tool for climate justice. Because we always say, or we always talk about no climate justice without gender justice, because these things go hand in hand. And I'll usually say that, you know, climate change actually has a feminine face because at the end of the day, it is women and girls that are mostly affected. And I recently did a research for the UNFPA, doing a fact sheet review, and it's really sad to see that in most countries or in most parts of the world where agriculture is the main source of income or livelihood for communities, it is women and girls that actually constitute the majority of this agricultural workforce. For instance, in countries like the Gambia and Nigeria, we see that about 70% of the agricultural workforce actually constitute women because their activities is mainly dependent on the natural environment. And when climate-related disasters occur, about 80% of those displaced by climate change are actually women and girls. And this is really sad because at the end of the day, it makes it really difficult for adaptation to be as effective as possible because of how women and girls continue to be disproportionately impacted. In addition to that as well, a recent Malala report has shown that about 12.5 million girls do not have access to education as a result of climate change. And this is in 30 countries. And out of those 30 countries, 22 of these countries are African countries. So this shows that countries or continents like Africa continue to be the most affected when climate change or climate disasters occur. And in these continents, again, women and girls continue to be exposed to not only other challenges such as GBV, lack of education, among others, but also other challenges that comes with humanitarian crisis, among others. And sadly for me, it's really disheartening to see that just 1% of global financing, 1% of global funding goes to women-led organizations. This is a sad situation. This is a sad reality. We're here talking about gender-transformative climate education, yet just 1% of global climate financing goes to women-led organizations in the global south. And these are things that we also need to discuss as we discuss moving towards a gender-transformative climate education, because we're going to be able to achieve climate education, a transformative one, without also ensuring that adequate financing is in place to support women and girls, or girls in general, as they access climate education. So my takeaway from the session here, or my main message and my call to action, because we have one of the ministers from here in our panel, Minister from Sudan, who is going to talk about the work that she's done, among others. But my takeaway here and my call to action for leaders is to make sure that we increase funding for girls' access to education. We need to increase the funding that we have for women-led organizations. We need to make sure that, obviously, this is something, it's a cliche, we've been talking about it, but we need to make sure there's an increase in the participation of women in climate negotiations. Just 37% of women head of delegations to the UNFCCC at COP27 were actually led by women. And this has been the same numbers we have been seeing for the past COPs, where head of delegations that constitute women are about 30%, among others. So we need to make sure we call for an increased leadership, especially women leadership, in our climate negotiations, and also consult women, youth, and other marginalized groups when we're making decisions, because it is in these decision-making processes that we make where we're able to advance action. So if they are not included, then we leave out really key and important components in the decisions and the programs that are going to be implemented. So yes, there needs to be that component where we increase the participation of women and girls. And obviously, we need to make sure that our school curriculums, our school educational systems include climate education, because we need to catch the young people young. We need to catch these people young so that at a young age, they understand climate-related issues and how they can take leadership to address the climate challenges that we face. So I am being signaled that my time is up, but thank you so much. I have a lot to share, but I am here to also listen to the actions and the solutions that are being done in advancing gender-transformative climate education, especially in the global south, where I believe it matters the most, because these are continents, or these are countries that are facing the impacts of climate change on a daily basis. We are seeing the tsunamis, we are seeing the flash floods, we are seeing the drought, we are seeing the heat waves, and we are seeing other environmental challenges in our communities. So on that note, in reverse, my official opening remark, I would love to welcome the next moderator for the final panel, where we're going to be joined by policymakers as well as other stakeholders. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fatu, and hello, everyone. Delighted to share this space with all of you. My name is Gahakasha. I am the founder president of Green Hope Foundation, which is a global social innovation enterprise working across 28 countries with over 500,000 people to address this challenge of ensuring gender just transformation in education and climate justice all across the world. And we see working all across the world for over a decade now that while greening curriculums is important and ensuring that we have gender just transformation there, it's very hard to achieve this transformation if you don't have the infrastructure to enable access to education, particularly in climate vulnerable zones in the first place. So we see the importance of, for instance, building solar-powered schools to provide climate resilience education, solar-powered mobile libraries, STEM labs, computer labs, streetlights, solar-powered streetlights to provide safe spaces for girls to go to school early in the morning and feel safe coming home in the evenings. So as was highlighted earlier, this is a challenge that has so many different connections and intersections, and it's so imperative that we address every single one of them. And that is why I'm so delighted to be serving as moderator for the second part of our event today, where we will not only be hearing actions, but also charting the way forward based on our past successes and failures and seeing what best we can do to achieve this gender just transformation in education for climate justice. So it is really my great pleasure to now invite to the stage our multi-stakeholder panel today. So first, I'd like to invite Honorable Awood Deng Ashril, Minister of General Education and Instruction of South Sudan. We have Valentine Chepcoach, GPE Youth Leader. We have Aline Cardoso, Secretary of Economic Development and Labor of Sao Paulo, Brazil. And we have Madam Fatou Gay, Lead Coordinator on Gender for the African Group of Negotiators, who unfortunately cannot find the room. So hopefully she'll be able to find the room and join us. I mean, I think that's a story that we can all identify with. So we hope she can join us. So welcome to all of our panelists. So glad that you're here. And I'd actually like to begin with you, Honorable Minister. If you could share some of the work that you've done in this aspect. We hear a lot of talk and commitments, but we need to hear more about what actions are being taken. So it would be wonderful if you could share some of the actions that you have undertaken. Over to you.
Thank you very much for having me here, and greeting to all of you. This is a very central topic, and I believe that what women and girls face has been highlighted. We have legal framework, we have strategies, we have plans, but it is time to translate them to action. What we have done in South Sudan, one was to try to remove the barrier that blocked the girls to go to school. And our president declared free and compulsory education for all children in South Sudan. So there's no room for any parents or community to say that we will be selective about education. So that as a policy decision by enforcing what was in the Constitution. Second, we have also issued policies to say that when a girl is pregnant or she's lactating, she has to go back to the class. So having a child should not be a barrier to continue with your education. So yesterday, we have one of our students delivered during exam, and she was taken to the hospital with her papers to continue with her learning, taking the exam. So that was a main, because sometimes when the girls get pregnant, the boy is allowed to go to school and the girl is stopped. That has stopped in our case. We also have taken initiative to hold conferences with community leaders, to mobilize community leaders to say, if education is for all, then as a community leader, you have boys and girls in your village. And if you want your village to be transformed, then it will be the citizen that will transform that village. The people you govern, they must go to school to bring back services to you. So it is important that the practitioners of what they call cultural praxis to be a part of education. So that has also gone well, and some of our community leaders now are building girls' school in their villages to send the girl to school. The other things that we have done, we have done a lot of awareness for girls when issues of early and forced marriage come up. Then they need to report. And I can say I have about 3 or 4 girls now who are going to university because they have come to report, and we have called the parents to sign an agreement that they will not charge them. And we paid the school fees to continue with their education. There is also cash transfer to promote girl education, and that has increased the enrollment of girls in our country. And I could also say the girls who have run away from early marriage have become ambassadors of education. So they speak themselves about what are their concerns. And when we have these community meetings, we bring girls to express their concern to the community leaders, to the government, to the members of parliament that represent them, to the teachers, to everyone, so that the voice of those who are affected is heard by every decision maker. So, and our president has taken the lead to campaign for girl education. He said, you need women in leadership, then you must send them to school. And for us, I believe that if I was not allowed to go to school, I would have not been speaking here today. So education is a tool to empower each and everyone. It is to empower women, it is to empower men, it is to empower girls, it is to empower boys. And that is what we should be looking at. So time for us to be talking about policies and legal framework without enforcement is not going to help us. It is action. What we have done also is to invest on girl education. Resources must be put in education for girls. So we had a few boarding schools that will allow female teachers to be role models. And we have specifically a boarding school for sciences for girls. And this has been well equipped so that technology is a part of the process of their education journey. And this has resonated very well with what is. So for us, we are saying, let us challenge the status quo and remove the barriers. And it cannot be done by the means of gender education. One of our states has enacted the law right now to ban early and forced marriage in that state and allow children to go to school. So these are the practical examples I can give for my country. It doesn't mean that the challenges are not there, but as long as it is not a single voice speaking, it is the president talking, it is the parliament talking, it is the local government talking, it is the chief talking, it is the ministry talking, then it means all of us have to join that voice to be one and create an environment for girls to continue with their education. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister, for actually highlighting policy in action. We hear, again, a lot about just, we need political will, we need to implement policies, but very little about what happens after the policy is implemented. We don't hear a lot about the implementation of the policy and what's actually going on with it, whether it's successful or not. And I think your remarks really highlighted why it's so important to have policy change, but also make sure that those policies are implemented at the ground level. And it's just so wonderful to hear, the breadth of intersections that you've addressed through those policy changes, whether that's, making sure that pregnancy is not a barrier in education, or having your ambassadors of education, as you mentioned, or making sure that you're investing in education as well, because obviously we need that money to be able to move forward with taking forward this work. So thank you once again for your remarks. I shall now pass it on to our next panelist. So, Valentine, it would be wonderful to hear a little more about what actions you're undertaking as well, or if there are any challenges that you've seen within your own community right now that you feel needs to be addressed and in this intersection of gender or climate education, and what you think needs to be done to address that.
Thank you so much. My name is Valentine Chepkoech Mugun. I'm a GPE youth leader from Kenya and also the founder of a grassroots organization known as the Barrier Breakers. I'm so glad to be able to talk in such a panel about breaking barriers, because that is what I basically do every day in Kenya. So the Barrier Breakers is an organization that deals with just what the minister has said, transition of teenage mothers back to school and their integration. What happened is this: as I was growing up, most of the young girls that I studied with, or my friends as we studied with, got pregnant at maybe the age of 12, 13, and they dropped out of school. So that means they cannot be able to access opportunities like I do, because my parents insisted on education. So what happens to these many young girls that drop out of school? Because you saw, sometimes it's a virtuous cycle of poverty. If the parent dropped out of school at 13 years, it's so difficult to get her kid, it is normal. You see, it's very normal. That is considered a normality. And I saw that this is not normal. As an empowered girl, I have seen how education has transformed my life. But then getting back, what is the cause of all this? We need to address the root cause of all this to be able to stop. As I champion for the transition of teenage mothers back to school, I'm encouraging those, if you have dropped out of school, I tell them that there's a Swahili saying that says, kuteleza si kuanguka. That means that when you fall, that's not the end of it. You still can rise and become better. So I have established a model smart farm near our office where I teach these young girls and teenage mothers climate smart agriculture techniques, that they don't need a big piece of land to be able to cultivate and even get proper nutrition for their young kids. So at least with the climate smart farming model, they have even been able to now establish kitchen gardens in their own homesteads, and other girls have been able to go back to school. But as we look at this, I've been asked to talk about the future. I don't want a situation where years from now, I still have to deal with teenage mothers, because honestly speaking, it is not easy to raise a kid as you're studying in school. Even as we talk to them, the reason why we started the smart farming program was because we realized that we're not going to be able to get all in school. Who do you leave your kids? You see, their mothers earn less than $1 a day. So for them to be able to just sit back, taking care of your kid as you go back to school almost becomes impossible. So my solution is, first, let us work on stopping the leaks. What is the problem? What is causing this teenage pregnancy in the grassroots? And sadly, it is all about climate change. The rivers at home that were once flowing with life have dried up. So this means that before these young girls get to school, they have to go kilometers looking for water, because, the gender roles that are still in the grassroots they have to, first of all, attend to the daily chores at home before going to school. So you see, it becomes a very, very big problem. Another problem is looking for firewood. They don't even know that, they're not even aware in the grassroots that by this, they're even affecting the environment. But if you're able to transition them, get to school. We can even teach them on alternative sources of fuel, for example, biogas that is readily available. So if you're able to invest in girls' education, this would really, really solve everything. Because honestly speaking, climate change is really widening the gender inequalities, leaving more girls out of school, and this really becomes a problem. So my challenge is, first, let us of course invest in climate resilient infrastructure too in schools, because we also realize that the schools are not sometimes able to withstand the shocks of climate change. Classes flood. Sometimes you have to go through rivers that are swollen to be able to go back to school. And it takes somebody with a very strong why to go back to school at that particular level. So we need to invest in such infrastructure to ensure that all our girls go back to school. We also need to nurture. There's also a mini program that I do called the Trees for Girls, where I teach young girls from a young age to plant their age. Every birthday, plant trees on your birthday, so that we can foster a sustainability mindset from a very young age. We need a mindset transformation for our young people. Before we even talk about the policies, some even sadly think that this is just the ancestors are angry, that's why we don't have rain. You see, the myths that we still have are so strong, so this needs to be solved. And with this, I'll just end with a quote that I love from Kamala Harris that says, "My daily challenge is to be part of the solution, to be a joyful warrior in the battle of the soul for this country." Let us not throw our hands when it's time to roll the sleeves. Years from now, when our children will ask us what we did when the stakes were so high, I don't want us to tell them what we felt. Instead, I want us to tell them what we did. Let us all work and invest in girls' education. And I end saying that I raise my hand for girls' education. That is what we do at GPE. And it's my challenge to, let's say I raise my hand for education. I raise my hand for girls' education.
I raise my hand for girls' education.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Valentine, for sharing your work and your future hopes as well of what you plan to do to address those challenges. And as a grassroots actor, there's so many connections that, you were talking about your experiences, and I was like, that's, it's not an isolated experience. We see that working with girls and women across the world as well, whether it's, the intersection with agriculture and ensuring that women and girls who have that education to be able to achieve food security within their own spheres of influence, or even making sure that they're able to just have the basic knowledge and skill sets to know that when it's not raining, it's not because the ancestors are angry, it's because there's a really big challenge that's right in front of our eyes, and there's ways that you can adapt to that, and education gives us that power. And I'm so glad that you highlighted that and highlighted the ground level actions that you're undertaking in that regard. So I shall now give the floor to Alina Cardoso. So just asking you a similar question as well, if you could share some of the actions that you've undertaken, and as the Secretary of Economic Development and Labor of Sao Paulo in Brazil, what do you see, the challenges are currently in the future, and what do you plan to do to address all of those?
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a challenge to talk about all these amazing women. Well, first of all, I think we must all work for, as it was said before, more women in leadership positions, because when women are in leadership position, we have more solutions. I like when you say we are part of the solution, and when women are in power, we accelerate the implementation of solution for gender and for climate, right? So just to give you an example, in Brazil, although it is kind of intermediary country, we are rich comparing to other global south countries, but we have so many gender issues. So concerning women in politics, for example, because we're talking about leadership, out of 180 countries in a ranking, our position is 130. So although we are developed when we talk about some important things like GDP, concerning gender participation, we are very, very late. We are lagging behind position 130. So that brings us a lot of problems. For example, we are the 5th country killing women in gender violence, right? So maybe there is a relation between lagging behind on women in politics and being one of the first countries killing girls, killing women. So just for the reflection. Well, beside all the traditional problems with gender violence, equal payment, respect to our bodies, our positions, our rights, our intellectual skills, I would like to talk about the implementation of public policies on supporting women in gender, climate, but also poverty issues, okay? So my point here is talking about gender and climate is important, but if we bring together gender, climate, and poverty, I think it makes more sense, because on the day-by-day, people day-by-day, especially when we're talking about vulnerable people, people need income, people need job opportunities. So if we can put together job opportunities and reduction to poverty or inequities with gender and climate, I think we are more effective, and then we can go faster. So to talk about some of the policies we are implementing now in São Paulo, I think when we talk about job opportunities, we must have in mind that people have different talent, different skills, and people want different things. So we have some different approaches to that. For example, when it comes to waste pickers, because this is a climate problem, we have a special situation in São Paulo where 60% of the pickers we support are women. Okay, there's a lot of informality in the sector, and we need to find solution for all of them, of course, but we are supporting 60% of the waste pickers we are supporting are women. So this is a concrete actions. Also, we have a very important urban agriculture program in the city of São Paulo that is known for being a very gray and concrete city. We have a very important urban agriculture program, and 40% of these urban farmers are women. We are supporting them with technical assistance, with training, and also with seed money for their agriculture business, so 40% of them. Also, when it comes to food security and the support in schools for better feeding kids, we have a program. We hired 5,000 women to work in schools. So there is a money transfer for them, but we are also training them to be more specialized in food security, including the fight against food waste. We waste a lot of food in Brazil. It's amazing. So we are putting together a lot of things. So when we talk about food security and fighting food waste, so we hired women for doing that in schools, because then they are working on the school community, but they bring that back home when they're back home, right? So 90% of the people in this program are women. And last but not least, we should not talk about women only when we're talking about cooking, food, or growing kids. We are also talking about women in tech, right? Bringing them to technology. So we have a startup program support that is supporting 52% of the people we support are women. And also, we have a green startup program. We are supporting green startups with environmental friendly solution, and 50% of these women in tech, girls in tech, are women, female, right, also. So I think by implementing concrete public policies that support together gender, climate, and the fight against poverty, we can go faster, because everybody has bills to pay. So it's important to talk about income generation also, besides gender and climate.
Thank you very much for bringing up that point. It doesn't get talked about enough that people have bills to pay. It's not just getting the education, and then achieving gender transformative education for climate justice, decent work and economic growth as one of the SDGs. It's there for a reason. It's really, really important. And women's role in that isn't talked about enough. So I'm so glad you highlighted that and highlighted the work you're doing in addressing all of these different intersecting sectors, and having women, providing them with the opportunities of upliftment in all those areas. Thank you once again. And with that, I shall now pass the floor to Madam Gay. I'm so happy you were able to make it and find us in this room. And the question I really have for you is, how can the African group of negotiators actively contribute to and support the call for gender-transformative education for climate justice? Over to you.
Please repeat the first part. Could you repeat the first part of
Sure.
the question?
So how can the African group of negotiators, how can they actively contribute to supporting the call for gender transformative education for climate justice?
Thank you very much for that question. The African group of negotiators is doing a lot to integrate gender into the climate negotiation process under the UNFCCC process, because since we are sitting here, then we are under the UNFCCC process. In March this year, the African group trained 46 young female negotiators, and in Bonn, 8 of them managed to attend the negotiations, the SBs, although 10 were selected, but 2 did not get the visa to come. Here in this COP, we have 10 of them. And attached to lead negotiators, and so that they learn. And that is at the African Group of Negotiators. And we are still, since we have our daily 8 o'clock briefings, like me, I have junior negotiators attached to me. When it comes to me to report to the group, and I ask them to report first, and then I supplement if needed. So we are doing that to integrate more women into this negotiating process, not just that they come, but we train them on how to negotiate and what to say and what not to say. And then we also continue training those and others who have not been trained by the African Group of Negotiators, but we bring them together, all others who are representing countries and are interested in the process. We bring them together and continue training them. At the level, at the national level, we encourage all of them to bring in women, especially when we say gender, we know that it is between male and female, but because the women are considered the most vulnerable amongst the two genders, then this is why we want to empower them more and continue. Because, like me, I have been negotiating from forever. I don't maybe have to say when, but forever. And I am now on the verge of retiring completely, but I need to put others in the negotiations so that it's a continuous process. At the national level, project owners, projects that are implemented at home, and the UN organizations in our various countries are encouraged to support female participation, particularly the young, because we know that they are taking over from us. That is the norm and that's the default. So we encourage them supporting the young negotiators to come into the. As far as the African Group of Negotiators, that is what is happening. And at this level, we have the GAP, the Gender Action Plan, which we will do the final review in SB 60 and make a decision in SB 61. And in this case, we are planning to organize a workshop to come up with our points of what do we want to see next, whether it's going to be called a gap or whatever it is going to be called, but it is continuation of the gender. And this is in the pipeline that we want to do. And then the second thing is, in the African Group of Negotiators organized together with UNDP to check which NDCs, national determined contributions, include gender in their activities, in the national determined contributions. And now we have known the gap, which countries have not mentioned gender even in the NDCs, and we're finding out why they are not included in the NDCs, because it's very important. And those gaps, one of our programs and projects that we want to do is to fill in that gap. And it will include public awareness, public participation, of course, and public access to information and international cooperation, which is the sixth element of that. But the education part is also very important at that level, at like pre-primary up to any time, up to the university level, whatever level they want to reach. So these are the plans of the African Group of Negotiators and beyond. I don't know what time I have, whether I can still talk or not. Probably not. Thank you.
No, but thank you very much for sharing that with us today. I love the fact that you spoke about getting women negotiators, because it's like, yes, we're working on the ground, but having a seat at the decision-making table is just as important, because we need to be everywhere if we are to demand our rights and our needs and wants being met. So thank you very much for sharing that. I am aware of like the time, so I'm gonna go straight into handing it over to our audience now. We do have time for maybe a couple of questions. So once again, just please introduce yourself before you ask a brief question. Any questions? Yes, over there.
Bula all. That's how we greet each other in the Pacific, in Fiji, where I came from. I noticed that we are overloaded with South-South. Thank you and congratulations for all the work that you are doing. My concern is with all the women's. Are we considering technical studies as well? For us as indigenous people, we're looking into all kinds of studies that the women can be included to and can be funded so that they can be enlisted and be empowered, so that it doesn't have to be a barrier for them if they are wherever they are. Most of the women's drop out from high school, not because of pregnancy, just because they couldn't get through the educational. So I'm considering, if I'm requesting if that can be considered too in here, we will be very much appreciated, because we have a lot of women who are very good with their hands that they can use to earn their living and to empower their life down there with their children and with their family. I am a mother of 4 girls. I got one of my daughter who was accidentally in her 5th year of medical students. She got pregnant. I have to leave everything I was doing to go and take care of her child so that she can continue. And she's enjoying it today just because somebody stood up for her. There are so many girls out there. And we need assistance, and we need help, and we need funding so that they can continue with their education, so that whichever field it is, as long as they can be empowered to carry on and to stand up. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for your comment and for your question. I see you with the mic. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, and congratulations to all the speakers for a really excellent presentation. My name is Doris Pomo, and I'm with Plan International in the AU Liaison Office. My question goes to the Minister of Education in South Sudan. We just actually came back from a meeting with the AU Peace and Security Council on children affected by armed conflict. I'm actually in awe about what you shared with regard to all the strategies and the policies that you have adopted and the successes. I also would like to hear the other side. I know we always hear about the challenges, but what you shared is really inspiring. And I want to hear what the challenges you are still facing to ensure that girls continue to go to school, and girls who have fallen pregnant can go back to school. What are the remaining challenges? And to actually my sister to the right, I would like to also hear what you're doing. The training is fantastic to ensure that the succession is readily available, and young women and women can continue to participate in negotiations, which is extremely commendable. What I would like to hear is especially in relation to, and this question actually goes to everybody. What I haven't heard here is the question of consumption. How do we educate? How do we transform the curricula to ensure that the type of consumption, not actually in Africa, because the continent is the least polluting continent in the world, but what do we do about consumption? Until we deconstruct the way we consume, it will be really difficult to change the situation, the climate crisis that we are experiencing.
Absolutely.
And that's something that we really also need to consider, as especially for us as Plan, as a child-focused organization, a girl organization, but also as women. What do we do to deconstruct that? We are teaching we talked about greening curricula. How do we green our behaviors?
Absolutely.
Well,
Yes. Thank you very much for your questions. Both, yes, we can.
I think she needs to be very specific about consumption. We consume a lot of things in this world.
I think
consumption of what?
I think general consumption. Sorry, we don't have any more time for questions because the timer is ticking.
Just a contribution. Okay, good afternoon. I am Fatou Ejeng from the Gambia. Though I apologize for coming to attend this session very late because I was having another session in our Gambia pavilion. And actually what you have been discussing is something that I really feel and I really like because it's my area. I am a teacher in the Gambia and I have taught for the past 13 years. And when you look at the girl education, I can say as a teacher and a parent, I have encouraged so many girls who were in the verge of dropping out to stay and continue their education. Why? Because they are pregnant and they don't have support. I actually take the risks. Take them back to school when they breastfeed the baby after 2 years. I take them back to school so that they continue their education. I can say I have about more than 10 students who have now graduated, and they were in the verge of being a dropout. So because of the support that I rendered them, actually that makes them now to further education. What I'm appealing to every woman is that it's our responsibility to see that our girl child not to drop away from education. Let us push them. Let us encourage them. Let us give them the faith that they can make it in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment, and I will pass it back to the panel for very, very, very brief remarks in literally 30 seconds to address all of the questions. You can start.
Well,
go this way.
I'm the Secretary for Economic Development, so there are two things that were said here that are very much related to what I do. First, about technical studies, and then about consumption. Well, technical education or supporting women, girls, to access labor market is fundamental, and we're doing that, but I don't want to talk about what we are doing on that. I want to talk also about awareness on the companies, the employers, because they need to give opportunities. So it's important to educate, but then those who will hire have to be educated to hire women. So it's just adding something to your point, okay? And regarding consumption, in our countries, you're from Africa, I'm from South America, the consumption is not very high. Mass of the population is not buying, especially now that we are getting poorer. So my point about consumption in our countries, okay, just one point. I went to the waste management facility here in Dubai. They produce 4 or 5 times more waste than we do. They have to do their homework. And we sometimes need the people to consume more. So that's one point. Okay, so just one thing about that. What we are doing on consumption side is talking to people about buying locally. Okay, so when we go to the poor areas of the city, where the poor people are, the few money that they have cannot be spent in the city center where people are rich. They have to buy in their local area. So they are buying from a sister, they are buying from a brother. So buying locally is about climate and is about empowering the communities.
Absolutely, thank you very much. Valentine.
Thank you so much. So my last will just be a response about the technical and vocational training. So my organization, though first we have done it with teenage mothers, we got grants from organization to have sewing machines, to have hairdressing equipment, just to teach the teenage mothers. But we are now considering incorporating mothers around the village so that we can build the economic resilience of these women. I've also run a grant scheme to the most vulnerable in my village, identified 15 families, helped them to get a cash transfer, and their lives automatically change. So what we need is finance, finance, finance. If we have climate finance, we can be able to solve so many issues in the grassroots. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Valentine. Madam Minister.
Thank you very much. I think I had mentioned that having children is not, for our country, is no more an obstacle. And also getting pregnant is not an obstacle, because we made it clear during the pandemic, we issued ministerial order that everybody has to go back to school. And that's why I gave the example. Yesterday, we have a girl that delivered during examination, and we took her to the hospital with her exams so that she can continue. So for us, it's not an issue, and our president is taking lead on that also. The technical school, we have only one technical school. But when I visit this technical school, I saw boys and girls in construction, in electricity, in mechanic. So it is not, it doesn't define that this is the role of a man alone. But I think I have seen women have gone into that, and we need to encourage more. So I think when it comes to consumption, I would say nothing about consumption, because we are not part of the whatever is happening, because South Sudan just came out from a war of liberation, and it has not gone into that stage yet. So we are still, zero on that. So I believe, for me, it is when women are in the leadership, what do you do to change the setup? We keep the status quo, or we challenge the status quo? In that, I am the first minister in our country, a female minister of education, and I just see my mom every day that has made a revolution to put us in the school and open community school for both girls and boys. And that's the path I'm taking. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Minister. Madam Gay, very briefly, over to you.
Thank you very much. I will, since I'm speaking at the level of the African group of negotiators, what we do is the negotiators who have come into the negotiations, we encourage them when they go back home, because that is responsibility when you go back home. Train others who don't have the opportunity to come here, and then it spreads down all the way to the grassroots, because our aim is to reach the grassroots, communities, vulnerable communities. Therefore, it does not stop here, and it should not stop here. It should continue all the way. And then when we talk about at the national level, what we do, the night schools are there, and training of trainers continues with the women, and also we teach the women who are not literate on records keeping and what they're selling and buying each other. They do their own trade between themselves. Whatever it used to be there in the past, but we reintroduced it, using them to keep their records by using the different colors of the notes, the money notes, with felt pens, so that they can write. Then, if it is green, then we know it's 10. If it is blue, we know it's 25. I know it's 0 minutes, but let me just finish with this one. And apart from that, we have skill centers teaching them what to do and linking them to the tourism department, so that they will access tourists at their own level, and encouraging ecology in the country. And for those who do not want their children to go into the formal schools because they want them to study Arabic, the government also has facilitated for the Quranic teaching school, so that they enter into school, so they are literate.
Awesome.
So I'll stop here because
Yes,
of time.
thank you.
But,
No, thank you very much, Madam Kim, for sharing that. And thank you so much to all of our panelists today on both of our panels for highlighting the importance of gender-transformative education for climate justice. We recognize that this is an issue that's a planetary issue, a human rights issue, an economics issue, and we cannot have any kind of sustainable development without women and girls at the core of development and educated women and girls at the core of development. So let us all work together to create this more climate just future that leaves no one behind. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of COP.